Everybody, welcome to our Better Way Thursday workshop tonight. We are focused on keeping a positive mindset throughout our job search. I know this is going to be a really important topic for us to talk about, especially for those of us that are moving into a new industry, working in a new area. Sometimes it can feel daunting and a little bit intimidating as we are trying something new. So we're so excited to be talking about this topic tonight. And I am excited to introduce Nichole Harrop. I'm not going to say much about her tonight. I'm going to let her do most of the introduction herself, but she is a career coach and an expert on this topic and really focuses on helping people find their best pathways forward as they are working in their careers and other areas of their life. So Nichole, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Robin. I'm excited to have this opportunity to speak with you all tonight. So like Robin said, I'm Nichole Harrop. I am a women's leadership and career coach. I hold a lot of different titles. I'm a mom of 2 young daughters, and I also work full-time for a data tech role. I'm a customer support manager, and I also work really part-time for an education tech company. So got a lot going on. I love coaching women. It's a huge passion of mine and something that I've done all along my career, but something that I've taken even more focus in the last few years. I released a podcast called Next Level Leaders, and it's all about helping you own your confidence and advance your careers. I do find myself often helping people leave one position and move into the next. So that's always interesting and something I love and something I have a lot of experience in. So I'm excited to share more about that. As far as tonight, thank you again for making time to be here. I know we all have busy lives and it takes time to prioritize those important things in our life. So I would invite you to be present if you're here. I know sometimes just showing up, even if it means that you're listening to something while helping out with kiddos or something else, I totally get that. But be as present as you can if possible, because that's how you're going to get the most out of this session. But then also giving yourself grace. I know talking about finding a job and going through that experience, it's such an up and downhill roller coaster, honestly. I've been through it myself, so I can very much empathize. And so just giving yourself some of that grace before we get started. I'll tell you a little bit about my experience, and I also like to share a virtual background because I like you to be able to see more of me because I like to kind of connect with each of you. So I'll share that here in just a second, but I wanted to share kind of my experience recently looking for a job. I was deciding to go back into the workforce after having my second daughter. She was turning a year old at the time. I was ready to get back into the workforce. And I thought it'd be easy for a career coach, right? I thought I would just put it out into the world that I'm looking for a job and I would instantly get all these job offers. Well, that was not the case. I definitely struggled, and I did a lot of that in silence and in the background. I didn't really utilize my network, which is the biggest thing I suggest to the people I coach is utilizing your network, who can connect you to the right people. And because of that, I really delayed myself in finding that next position. I certainly had some of those ups where I thought I was going to get a job offer and then a quick down when they said, never mind, we're putting this job posting on hold. So that was really hard because then I felt like I had to restart my job search and find the right company. But it wasn't until, and you can go back and look on my LinkedIn, I posted and said, hey, if you or anyone you know is looking for a manager of a customer support team, I am your person. And I actually got a DM from the VP who ended up hiring me for my current role. So it's all about putting yourself out there and networking and having a positive mindset throughout that. So let me share this and I'll kind of move out of the way. I'd like for you to be able to see a little like Vanna White style presentation. So hopefully that jives well with all of you as well. So we're talking today, of course, about maintaining a positive mindset through your job search. And the goal here is, of course, to be more aware and in control of your mindset throughout the job search and to take action on what you can control. Because there's a lot of stuff that's out of our control, but yet I feel like, especially as women, we want to have control over as many things as we can. And that's not in a bad way, it's in a way that helps us feel more confident. And that's not always the case that we can. So being aware of what we can't as well. So throughout the chat, I want you guys to be talking and commenting, building those relationships. This whole event and ongoing series is about networking. So put in the chat where you're currently at. So if put the 1 if you're employed, but you're looking for something else, maybe you're open to new ideas or opportunities. A number 2 is if you are unemployed and need a job. That's kind of where I was at this most recent point, needing that job. And then number 3 is unemployed, but wanting a job. So that can be maybe you're have been a stay-at-home mom and you're thinking, okay, I might be interested in trying out something new, but I'm not in a huge rush. So put a number 3 for that. And again, this is for purposes for you all to be networking and figuring out, okay, who can I connect someone with, or how can I get further connected to kind of see where people are at. Maybe if you're for those people who are in stage 2, maybe like, let's see how we can further connect with these people to get them another position. All right. So I think we can all agree, right, that it's good to be in a state of number 1, that section 1, where you're thinking, okay, yeah, I'm employed, but I'm open to other ideas. Maybe that's also even number 3, where you're open to ideas, but you don't need a job. The second area is going to be the most difficult because we need that income, we need that stability, whatever that looks like for us. So I want to talk about proactive versus reactive. So when you are going to be in the proactive stage, of course, you are going to be in the phases of networking and building that network as much as you can before you ever are in a position where you need that job. Excuse me. And then reactive is where, of course, you're going to be in a position like I've also been in. I got laid off unexpectedly right after I found out I was pregnant after trying for 3 years. We just had a successful IVF. And 3 days later, I was told that my very secure job was no longer. So that was really stressful. And guess what? I hadn't done much of networking proactively and thinking of how, like, if I was in that position, what was it going to look like? And, maybe after 2020, 2021, people are being a little bit more prepared of, hey, if I do lose my job, what are my options? Or if I do want to quit, what are my options, right? We want to make sure that we have a healthy mental state as well in the workforce. And if that's not being honored, you can look at other things as well. Yes.
Nichole, can I jump in with a question here? Because this is something that I have really seen among a lot of people. The seeming inability to motivate ourselves to be proactive when we're not in kind of a desperate state. Mm-hmm. I know that, like, in my own life and other times, it's so easy to just kind of be floating along, even if things aren't really great, but we don't really find ways to be proactive until we lose a job, or we have, a spouse loses a job or something where it gets kind of serious. So do you have any tricks or ideas of how we can find a way to motivate ourselves, even when we already have a job, to really be proactive?
Yeah, great question. So what you can do, and so I'm all about like low minimum barriers. I am like an all or nothing type of person. I'm an Enneagram 3, which also doesn't really correlate with some of these things sometimes because it means I'm an achiever. I like to do a lot of things, as you can tell by my work history, but I also don't like to make a lot of effort if it's not really needed in that moment. And what I have done is set this low minimum standard where I am setting in my calendar, because that's what I live and die by, is my calendar. I set some time each week, or at least every other week. We're going to just get in a rhythm here of proactively reaching out to either you could do internal network and external network. So I recommend, because you don't want to bombard yourself thinking, oh, I'm going to go network and message 100 people on LinkedIn. That can get really overwhelming because if people are responding and then you're not replying, that's way worse than not initially reaching out. So setting a low minimum barrier for you, if that's two people internally that you're going to network with, who you work with, and then two people externally that you're going to reach out, who you're already connected with, maybe on LinkedIn, maybe you follow some of their stuff, and you start having an actual conversation and connecting with people. That's what I recommend. That's worked for me. And when I'm thinking, okay, I feel safe, so I don't feel like I need to do all of these other things. And it's great when we can feel that way. But I mean, as we've seen, you can easily be let go, unfortunately, from companies, and the loyalty it is not reciprocated in so many situations. So I always say, be prepared for any future opportunity that could come available to you. Perfect. All right. So, one thing in regards to reactive is sometimes when you're in a stage of maybe you really are not happy in your career, you hate your boss, things aren't going well, maybe you have like a real micromanager. When you're applying to other jobs and you're like, get me out of this place, sometimes that is like, that's what we call scarcity mindset. And I have a friend who, love him to death, bless his heart, right? He has gone through that scarcity mindset where he'd been applying to positions out of that, hey, I need this, help me, get me out of here. And what happens? People can feel that. Like I noticed a dip in the even responses that he was talking to me about, even getting people to initially interview him before they even ever saw him or met him or talked to him. So I want to bring that up as well as just kind of getting in a healthy place to feel like you're doing what you can proactively. And then again, sometimes you're going to have that reactive session or time in your life where you're going to have to do what I did. I wasn't really fully prepared. And that meant that I was going to have to go hit the ground running a little bit like at the lower barrier than maybe I would have started had I done some of that proactive networking. Most of us now know how important it is to be networking proactively. LinkedIn is such a great place, but it can always also be really overwhelming. I try to spark up some conversations with people, and sometimes, like I have one friend on there now who I met earlier this year. We've been chatting almost daily, and we've built such a good friendship. And he's like, this is so weird. I've messaged so many people to connect, and it's so surface level. So how do you get that a little bit deeper? And honestly, it's continuing to show up authentically as yourself, seeing how you can offer some of that value in advance. Hey, how can I help you? Are you looking for anything? What could I do for you? And then that also gets reciprocated. So always being willing to offer. One thing that I love is if you're a little woo-woo, I like to get a little woo-woo. And I always say this when I'm sending off my resume, I always think like, okay, let's send this off with positive thoughts. If it's something that I'm really interested in, I will say, if it's meant for me, it will be. And I love that because it's kind of letting go of any attachments. And I've truly, in the moment, we don't know why that we didn't get a position. I applied for one job that I knew I would be amazing at. And I didn't even have my first interview before I was like, okay, where's my offer letter? I'm ready to sign it. I'm going to be amazing. I'm going to do great things with this company. I knew a few people. I thought I had a great connection in that regard. And guess what? I didn't even make it past the initial phone screen. Like they just were like, nope, she's not a right fit for us. And while I won't understand that in the moment, I now understand it reflectively thinking back. And unfortunately, most things in our life we don't understand right in the moment. It's usually in that reflection. So when we say this, if it's meant for me, it will be. And then I try to let that stress or like worry go as much as I can. Again, preparing myself mentally for whatever is best is going to become available for you, and you're going to meet the right connections and get the right, pay or whatever that looks like for you. So I hope that resonates with you, and feel free to paste it wherever it feels right for you. Maybe it's the background of your phone, like I've had it before, wherever you need it. All right, so here is another one that you can type a response in the chat if you'd like, is where you're at with your mindset throughout your job search. Where are you at? Are you feeling excited? Are you feeling stressed? Are you feeling hopeless, hopeful? What does that feel like for you right now? And just feel free to kind of like let a little bit of that out. I think it's helpful to have a way to release some of that stress, anxiety, frustration, because again, it's what on LinkedIn you don't see. This is the kind of ugly side of what people don't share is the real lows you see on LinkedIn. Oh, after 500 interviews or 500 applications, 40 interviews, 6 final interviews, I finally landed a job with X company. You don't hear from them often. I've seen maybe 2 posts where people are still in the thick of it, really struggling, because we don't want to be seen as weak people. So finding those people within your network are also, especially the women here, as who I gear most of my messaging towards, but it's for men too. I have so many male colleagues that I've built such great friendships with over time. And sometimes they also need that support to hear, hey, it's okay if things aren't going very well in your job search. How can I help? Who could I connect you with? Do you want to search through my LinkedIn connections and see if I might know someone and I can do like a personal introduction? What does that look like? So feel free to type that, and again, create those connections. And vulnerability is such a hard thing because it allows people to judge us where we're at, but it also makes such great connections. I'm a huge fan of vulnerability. All right, so moving on, maintaining your mindset during the waiting game. Oh my gosh, this is a hard part. So much of it is getting rejected or not hearing back. Again, I feel like with my 10 years of leadership experience in different companies, I've worked for very well-established companies, I've worked for startups. And when I was getting rejected without even a phone screen or right after a phone screen, that affects your self-worth. I don't care who you are, like that's a hard hit. And kind of sit in that for a minute and then be like, okay, we're moving on. I'm going to be okay. If it's meant for me, it will be. This is going to happen. It's if one thing is saying no, it's just pointing you into one better direction of the career that you're supposed to be at, or at least that next step, because sometimes even that next step feels like, oh crap, this actually wasn't right. At least it's another connection, or maybe it's certain people that you needed to meet at that one particular place, and you can pivot and head in a different direction. It's okay. We don't always get it right on those, jobs either. So that's okay.
I've got a question coming in here about the waiting game and how and maybe you're about to say this. So I don't want to steal your thunder here because you've talked about getting rejected, but this not hearing back. I just was hearing from a woman today who said, I submitted my application on this day. I followed up on this day. They said follow up on this day, but then they didn't do anything. Like, how do we create the best timeline without seeming too desperate, but kind of keeping ourselves top of mind if we think that check-in can be beneficial? How do we gauge that and know how to manage that waiting game when we know that our timeline might be different than the company that we're working with?
Yeah, so that can be so hard, especially again, when you're in that phase too, where you need a job. So you're thinking, oh my gosh, I need to hear back. I was in a similar situation when I ended up, after all of the craziness, I ended up with 2 great companies offering me a position. And that was also stressful. I was like, oh my gosh, I thought it was stressful not having a job offer. Now I have 2 job offers and I am scared to death to tell one of them no, because I don't like turning people down like that, because both of them were such great opportunities. So yes, it's setting expectations. So let's say you're not hearing back because you haven't, let's say they didn't even respond to you at all, right? I'm still getting rejection letters and it's been almost 4 months since I started my position. And I just crack up thinking, who is over these job postings? Like at this point, just don't send it, right? It's been 4 months. Um, but so if you're not hearing back at all, then, you know, you can decide how you want to move forward. What I do is, and I'm a huge proponent, I'm not like I don't like shaming people saying, oh, you have to do this or you're dumb or you're like lame or whatever. So that I'm always going to give you ideas and options and you choose, you try on, you figure out what's going to be best for you. What works for me is I have a whole Google document. It's hundreds of pages long because I copied and pasted the job description of every single job that I applied for. And I put the date that I applied for it. And then if I really liked that job, I put a keyword. Maybe it was love or something. So then I could do, Command F, search my document for love, and I would go and follow up with all of those jobs. When I had some time, maybe it was like in the morning, I would hop on and go on LinkedIn and I would start connecting with people proactively from those companies and start to have conversations with these people. Because if it wasn't going to happen right now, I wanted to potentially work with them at some point down the road. So huge way to build your network as well in that regard. Is during this process. Because again, if you choose one position and you decide it's not right for you, then you could have other opportunities based on this network that you've built. So that's what I will do. And if I haven't heard back from a position that I'm really excited about, I will reach out and say, hey, I applied for this position and I haven't heard anything back for a week now. Do you have any information or do you know who might have information on what the status of this job posting is? Because if they were posting it just for an internal hire, well, great. I got my hopes up for pretty much nothing. And my self-worth is a little bit down, right? And then you find out, okay, they've already filled it with someone internally. Great. Okay, moving on. I'm going to delete that, love off of that one and move on to the next. So huge on doing that with the job description, because that's going to help you down the road with what I suggest to clients of keeping track in a work journal, essentially, to see the differences between when you were hired and then what you're currently doing, because sometimes that list after you get hired grows like this long, and then they still want to pay you this much. So I recommend that's a start, is to copy and paste all those job descriptions. So yeah, that can definitely help. If you're not hearing back after you've applied, it's setting that expectation. Hey, Robin, thank you so much for your interview today. Can you tell me when I might hear back on next steps? Let them tell you and you follow up that day. Don't follow up sooner. I've had that. I had a military guy, bless his heart as well, called me. I remember I was like, he had my personal cell phone. I was in the mall. I worked in the mall at the time. He called me and he's like, I kept getting a call. I thought it was going to be an emergency. So I answer it. He's like, hi, this is so-and-so. I'm like, how do you have my number? I'm not quite sure. Okay, great. And he's saying, when will I find out about this job? And I told him, I let him know that I would follow up by the end of the week. It was now Wednesday. And so I wasn't ready to provide that feedback, and appreciate to a degree the assertiveness, but it was a little too much. So again, being aware of that, self-awareness is huge. If you feel like you should follow up sooner, maybe lean into that. That's totally up to you and how you feel. It doesn't hurt to maybe send an email and say, like, I'm really excited. I was looking at your website and blank or what have you. That's totally okay. You're not saying, oh, and hey, have I moved on to the next step? So there's a difference between additional relationship building and then going forward with trying to get some feedback. So yes, but you can still follow up until you get an answer. I would follow up maybe at least 2 additional times. Again, it just depends on how you're feeling about the situation. And if you feel good about reaching out some more, I have tons of people who reach out to me, and a lot of them are friends, and they're like, hey, should I do this? And I'm like, absolutely. And then what happens? They end up getting that job. So if you're ever unsure, my email is going to be at the end of this. Please always feel free to reach out, and you can ask, hey, should I send this? This is what's happening. Yes or no. And I'm happy to give you some feedback. So it's such a scary place. You're in such a vulnerable place when you're interviewing. So it's helpful to have, different friends in the same situation or who have gone through that. So then there's additional feelings, right? You might be feeling like you aren't progressing. This is if we're applying for positions and, we're not making much progress. Maybe you get a little desperate thinking, oh my gosh, am I ever going to find a job? It's so easy to go from, oh my gosh, I'm so hopeful, this is so exciting, to like next 10 minutes, you're like, I'm never getting hired. Who wants to work with me? My resume sucks, or whatever it is. Like, we can get so down on ourselves. So again, it's kind of recentering, remembering to let it go, doing as much as you can, which I will talk about in another minute, as well, in addition to just additional networking proactively is such a huge thing. You might also be wondering, is anyone even seeing your application? That is a big one as well, which we'll get to in a minute. So some of these are certainly things that I've thought about. So I'm imagining some of you feel them, as well as this next one is, I want to share about kind of bigger picture. A lot of the times companies will have applicant tracking systems. I know I tuned into Angela's, and I know she talked about applicant tracking systems and how to beat those. And we need to make sure that your resume is hitting the bare minimum, because if you're not hearing back, part of it could be your resume, right? So bigger picture is the applicant tracking system, being aware of that. Internal hires, you might be so excited and so qualified, maybe even overqualified for a position, and you don't hear it back and you're thinking, what? And again, I want you to remember not to let that affect your self-worth and how great you are. This has nothing to do about you. In so many cases, if you went online and just read resumes for even 10 minutes, it is like the most boring thing of your life. Trying to connect, like, I didn't realize how boring resumes are until I had to read them for one of my jobs when I was a first leader. And I was like, I don't get anything out of this. Like, I'm reading bullet points and like, sure, these numbers are great, like, but who is this person? Like, would I want to go get a coffee or grab a soda with them? Are they a good person? How do you tell that from a resume? It's so hard. So that's just part of it. But internal hires and premature job postings, you never know what you're going up against, which is why I say, hey, if it sounds great, let's do what we can. Again, what's in our control. And if not, then we are going to let it go, let it be. As you build relationships with these companies, you might find out, hey, that was actually a posting that we took down because we decided that so-and-so was going to actually take on that role internally, or you'll find the hiring manager hired like their brother or their sister or their best friend, which is a great sign that you dodged a bullet in a lot of cases. I've worked for many family owned, not my favorite in some ways, because sometimes people aren't most qualified, but I learned a lot in those positions. So internal, oh yeah, go ahead.
If you're, yes. I mean, just trying to put this bigger picture, part of this is just understanding that a lot of what might be happening if we're not hearing back or not getting any traction has nothing to do with us. And so we don't need to take it personally. It's not that we're not qualified, that we don't bring something to the value. There are often a lot of things that are just have nothing to do with us. And that we can, once we understand that, we can set that aside and say, okay, I'm going to focus again on the things I can control, and recognize that there might be a lot of things at work here that have nothing to do with me, or not a deficit in me. Is that kind of what you're saying here?
100%. Yes. If you read a job description and you feel qualified, and I'm going to quick plug that apply for literally everything that piques your interest, even if you don't meet 100% of the requirements. I didn't even see a job description for my current position before, like, because the way I moved through the system, I never actually saw a job posting. I didn't realize I would be managing like a tech support team. Wouldn't have signed up for that proactively, but I'm learning. And guess what? I'm a great leader. I can learn those things. So I want to preach, especially to all the women out there listening, that it's never about you. It's about the bigger picture of what's going on in that workplace, or maybe it's your resume that maybe doesn't showcase all of your great strengths. And a resume honestly may never do that. A resume is honestly getting you in the door, and you do the rest. So even if you're applying and interviewing, that's where you kind of put in a little bit more of like, oh, is it me? Because I know before that, Nichole said it wasn't me, but now I've interviewed and they've gotten to know me. Is it me? But again, you're not a right fit for everyone. And that is a good thing. It's a good thing to not be a right fit for every company or every position. So kind of owning that and feeling confident in it and finding somewhere that is going to value all that you have to bring. So yes, please apply to literally everything. I didn't go to college. I make over $80,000 a year now in my position. I've learned so much on the job. I've had great mentors, and I feel like my path is to show that anyone can do that and find great careers by not necessarily going some of these, I would say, more old school traditional routes. So yes. Okay, so then we're going to kind of move into taking action. So if you aren't getting interviews, we've kind of talked about this a little bit. A first step would be to work on your resume. I'd also say part of that is to proactively network. So part of that process of me copying and pasting to my huge document, then I was going to go in, and so maybe I would spend some time applying just to jobs and not get sidetracked, because LinkedIn can be distracting on all the other things. And I swear I have like a notification every 3 minutes, even though it's not really a notification, right? So then I'm clicking and refreshing my home every 10 seconds. So what you can do is apply for the jobs and then go back through the jobs that you've applied for and start connecting with people proactively on LinkedIn and using that add a note. So click connect, add a note, and talk about what your intention is. Some people where they just connect randomly, sure, like I'll connect with you most of the time. But if you add a note saying, hey, I applied for this company and I'm really excited about the position. I'd love to, get to know more people who are working for this company. I see you've been in X position for X years. What's been your favorite thing in the last year, or something like that? So you're asking them a question. People are more likely, right? Think of how you would want to be approached on LinkedIn. And it doesn't have to be weird, or, people want to get referrals, or people want to hire great people. And if you are out there sharing how great you are on the back end, people can say, hey, that girl, Nichole, if you see a Nichole Harrop on your list, push her to the top. Or, hey, let's see, is she in your rejection pile because she didn't pass ATS? Like, she's freaking awesome. Like, we've been talking for the last week. We should see if we can get her in here. So things like that can certainly happen by proactively networking. All right. If you're getting rejected, it's helpful to ask for feedback. I wouldn't necessarily say to do that in the exact moment. It can be helpful to wait about 24 hours and ask for some feedback, depending, again, how you feel. Most people, when we're in that stage of getting rejected and a turn down, if it's like a phone turn down, it's hard to be like, hey, I'm almost in tears, but can you just give me some feedback? Right? I've totally been there. And that's not usually the time when you can take that feedback and not be so much harder on yourself and not be in a state where you're going to kind of be maybe a little bit more irrational. So I like to give myself 24 hours and then I'll reach out for some additional feedback. Hey, I'd love to improve my interviewing skills, or, what was it that maybe wasn't as, whatever it was, could you share some feedback of how I can improve? Sometimes it's helpful also to ask more specifically, was there anything in my interview responses that that you have feedback on, or is there anything in regards to the fit for the role that you felt like I was missing, so that I can better update my resume or something? You're giving them really specific areas, because a lot of these different recruiters and hiring managers, unfortunately, like I always like to give people feedback if they asked for it. So I kept really thorough notes. Not every leader does that, which I wish people did more, because I think it's just plain human decency to give that feedback if someone's willingly asking for it. I think people are so scared to say some sort of feedback that's going to like lead them to a lawsuit or something. I don't know. But it's helpful to ask for feedback. In a virtual world, I also suggest like I'll record, check your like recordings like states. If you're not in Utah, if you're in Utah, it's like a one party consent, so you can record the conversation without someone else knowing. And this is like for your own personal use. You're recording it to see, okay, I'm going to re-listen to this and see what I could have done better. Oh, wow, I didn't even answer their question. That's embarrassing. So then you can go back. I've done it so many times. Probably don't say, I hope that answered your question, because then that means you probably forgot what the question was. So you can ask in that situation, can you restate the question one more time? I want to make sure I answered it thoroughly, right? So then I'll listen to that and I'll go back and I'll follow up with them in my thank you for my interview, and I'll say, hey, on the question when you were asking me about a time that I maybe missed a deadline and what I did to recover from that, or what I did from there, I realized I didn't give a thorough response on my specific actions to fix the issue. I'd love to share some of that in this email. Share it, send it, bada bing, bada boom, like you're feeling better, right? So it's a good way in your interview to prepare, at least virtually. I felt like there is some sort of advantage when you are virtually. Okay, I think I had one of these that was a little out of order. So let's see. Okay, beautiful. If you aren't hearing back, it's helpful to also follow up. We kind of talked about this already, but yes, following up, especially if you've had an interview and they legit are ghosting you, oftentimes, and depending on the stage, if they're a startup, like you're probably going to have to be a little bit more assertive. If they are a well-established company, they probably have very like everyone has their role and everyone knows what they're doing. But at startups, they're like, oh, hey, Nichole, I know you don't ever do this, but can you hire for this role and own this job posting and follow up with people? Okay. Yes. And then they're like, hey, have you followed up with so-and-so? Yep, that's on my list today. And I'm like, oh crap, running, like grabbing my phone. Hey, how are you? We'd love to move you on to the next step. It's been like over a week. So it happens. So be a little bit assertive in those situations as well. All right. Making connections. Beautiful. So we've talked about this as well. Everything's very redundant in a good way in this mindset discussion, is making those connections. You never know who that next connection is, who's going to know the right perfect job, who's going to be able to help get you connected to the right people. And this, in your proactive networking, this is what I'll do if I'm looking for a job, but I don't want people to know at my current job, but I'm open to ideas or new opportunities. I'll be talking to them and I'll be like, hey, Robin, it's been so great chatting with you. I've loved getting to know more about your role. Something I'm really interested in is let's say it's project management, is project management. I've been in customer support leadership for the last 10 years. And I feel like a lot of that is kind of managing those different moving parts. And I've gotten opportunities to work on certain projects that are a little bit more short lived. And I really thrive on those deadlines that I feel like are really relevant to project managers. If you or anyone you know is posting about project manager positions, would you maybe, copy that link and send it to me? I'd be really interested in hearing more about that. So then Robin knows when she's on LinkedIn that if she sees a link or someone talking about it, or maybe it's her spouse's best friend's brother is talking about it and saying, oh my gosh, we could really use like a project manager. We need someone really quickly. Okay, you've got to look at Nichole. She's great. She's got all these things. Like, let me introduce you. Right? People don't know what to do if we don't ask them. So that is definitely a big piece of this. All right. It wouldn't be some sort of mindset and positivity without some sort of affirmation meditation. And I want to read you through this. I might shorten it just a little bit because of time, because I want to be able to answer any questions that you might have. But I want to go through this. If you're in a place where you're by yourself, you feel comfortable saying these out loud, great. If not, repeat them through your head, and be mindful of the ones that feel hard to repeat, or that are really simple to repeat, because this is all about being more confident and feeling good about those next steps within your career and where you're progressing to. So if you feel comfortable, please close your eyes at this time. Just take some deep breaths and repeat after me. I am enough. I am capable. I am prepared. I am empowered. I am confident. I am an overcomer. I am grateful. I am giving myself grace. I am discerning. I am abundant. I am supported and loved. Okay, keep your eyes closed. Take some additional deep breaths. I am strong and courageous. I am able to do hard things. I can recover when I make a mistake. I am worthy because I am. I am showing up as I am supposed to. I create the life I want. I create the joy I want. I create the peace I want. More deep breaths, taking it all in. I am aware of myself and others. I am gentle with myself. I'm learning to love myself more every day. I'm at peace with the current state of my life. I choose to give my best and know that it's more than enough. I am a powerful creator. I welcome all the great blessings to enter my life. I peacefully and easily accept what I cannot change. I am worthy and deserving of my desires. All right, a few more deep breaths. All right, go ahead and open your eyes. I want you to think, was there any that were hard to repeat? I know for me, just even saying some of those, I was getting a little emotional thinking about them. But if there was anything that when you read it, your voice cracked or you had some doubt, like, I can't believe I'm even saying this out loud, that's probably the one that you need to write down and save it somewhere. Maybe it's in your bathroom, on your mirror, so you can read it every day. Maybe it's next to your bed on your nightstand. You know, all of you are so worthy of everything that you want. And this time of your life in looking for jobs, it can be so stressful and frustrating. And I want you to know that you are so worthy of everything that you want. And if you can't see it right now, great things are coming for you. You just have to keep going and keep moving forward. So write some of those down. If you can look up affirmations and find what resonate with you and share those on your screen. Maybe it's your phone or what have you. All right, well, let's move on. If you have any questions, I'm also going to share with you, Robin, a link if you can share that in the live stream. This is a link to a follow-up document that you can download, and it will just have some additional prompts for you.
Thank you so much. That is awesome.
Of course.
So excited. I loved doing those affirmations. That was really cool. And I'm a believer in affirmations. I really like doing them, but I hadn't heard some of those before. I hadn't done some of those before. So I think that was really cool. So I've got some questions here. First of all, just a scenario with one of our tech moms who's been through a lot of ups and downs. And one of the things that is really a challenge, I think, is separating the personal from the professional, and knowing that a job, a job search is professional, but it can feel really personal. And when there are other challenges, like we actually have a lot of women in our community who are dealing with ex-husbands that are difficult, or going through divorces, or dealing with children who have health issues or other things like that. How can we first of all, should we kind of compartmentalize those different things and try to keep the stresses separate with this professional versus personal? Or how would you recommend? I know you're not a therapist, like some of this obviously we would want to work with a therapist if we could, but thinking about the personal setbacks that we're doing and then feeling these professional setbacks as one more heavy load on us, how would you recommend kind of addressing those in our lives?
Yeah, such a great question and something so vulnerable. Thank you for sharing, whoever said that. It's looking for work is such a vulnerable place to be because it can bring out some of our insecurities. Or, I mean, trust me, I've had those interviews where I do interview prep all the time with people. But I'll get those way out of left field questions, or sometimes even super basic ones. I had one where they asked about my 3 to 5 year plan, and I shared what that was. And he didn't like that because I knew, because he asked again later on. It was like a whole day interview. I mean, you're talking like I hadn't worked a full 8 hours in over a year in an office, and I was doing this on site, and so it already made me super out of my comfort zone to do all of this. And then at the very end, it was, hey, okay, can you go through your 3 to 5 year plan? There's no wrong answer. And I wanted to be like, yeah, there is, because apparently mine wasn't what you wanted to hear. So I mean, honestly, I left that and just cried. One of my I took two dear friends who work for this small company. And I thought, this is like an easy, again, I was confident. I probably don't struggle with confidence much in that regard because I have a lot of things that I've accomplished in my career. So I don't struggle as much with confidence during that moment. But you better believe I walked out of that and cried almost the whole drive home because it is such a vulnerable thing. I knew I didn't get the job. And then when he called to turn me down, he was like kind of laughing, half laughing. And it was in that moment that I was like, I would never have been a good fit for this company. My heart and my passion, it didn't align with what they were doing. And even just that call was such quick affirmation for me to know if he's like laughing while he's telling me I'm not getting this job, there's just something wrong in that. So, I think showing up as your whole self. I mean, I've taken interviews where my daughter she was supposed to be napping and she was crying through most of my phone call. Yes, I did not get a follow up after that. But you know what? I think there's something to say about women and moms. I just, ever since moving into that next phase of my life, moms are superheroes, like super women, 100%. I did not know like how amazing women were until I became a mom. And now I have just so much more respect for working, like women who work, who have children. And it's hard. You know, I cry, like my daughter cried through the whole call, but I didn't miss a beat. You know, that it was very distracting for them and maybe uncomfortable because they didn't have children. But you know what? I it was showing that I can still push through hard things, even when I have a crying, screaming toddler in the background. I've had it where, you know, an interview that, yeah, I had to go help my daughter. She tripped in the kitchen and started crying. And I said, hang on one moment. I walked away. If someone doesn't want to hire me because I had to go help my crying child, then it's not a right fit for me. And the companies where I can come back and sit down and I can say, do you mind repeating that question for me one more time? I'm happy to go over that now. And the people who let me move on with that, those are the kind of people I want to work with. So I know it can be so hard. And for me, I'm so stressed in the moment with crying kids. As an interviewer, I don't care about that. There's many people who understand that. I was a mom coming back into the workforce. I couldn't afford a babysitter every time I had a 30-minute, maybe 15-minute call. What if they canceled on me? Then I'm paying a babysitter for something, you know, like I didn't have all these extra funds to be doing that. And so what did I do? I did my best and showed up as, you know, my authentic self, and the right company respected that and welcomed that and said, hey, we value family first. And they proved that throughout the interview process. So I hope that gives you guys some solace that yeah, there's so much going on in all of our lives. And the more you feel like you can share openly about those things, the better that relationship is going to be going forward.
I love it. Thank you so much. So another question here, when we're trying to keep this positive mindset, how do we know if we've experienced setback, rejection? How do we know when it's time to stay positive and keep moving forward, and when it's time to maybe pivot or readjust or recognize that I'm not getting any traction here. It might be for a reason. Maybe it's time to do something different. How can we gauge that and make that decision?
Yeah, such great question. And if I don't get to someone's question, like again, my email's right here. Please feel free to follow up and reach out. I'm not scary. Like I will follow up with anyone who reaches out with any questions. I'm not gonna like try to sell you coaching packages. I'm just here to help. So in that situation, I would say whenever you're not making progress, it's just like in, let's say, a recipe that you're making and you're baking cookies and like you keep making it over and over again and it keeps not working out. What are you going to do? Are you going to keep doing that same recipe the same way that you did it, at the same oven temperature, the same cooking time, the same baking tray? No, you're probably going to start trying out different things. So that's the same in your job search. What I was doing is I was doing it behind the scenes because I didn't want anyone to know that I wanted a job, because if I'm a career coach, shouldn't that like bring me all the money in the world? No, because so much of it I just want to do out of a passion, and I don't want to have it be so stressful for exchange, money for time. I love doing events like this. So now I have a day job that I'm not as stressed being able to do things like this. So it's having a realization of, okay, let's take an inventory. Where am I at? Where am I struggling? I have tons of clients who will reach out and say, hey, I've gotten all these interviews. I'm getting turned down at the last moment. What can I do? And so we do like a mock interview session and talk through those. I have people who get told they're overqualified for roles. I had a girl who had to kind of fight for this role. It was her dream company, and they were trying to say that she was overqualified, but the position that they had was $20,000 more than what she was currently at, but they were still saying she was overqualified. So again, it's these weird nuances, and it's a matter of how we approach them. So if you feel like you're doing all the right things and you're not getting what you're wanting, like have a conversation with one of like more of the tech moms in these groups. Reach out to some of us who've done the speaking events. We're here to help. Maybe it's time to hire a career coach who resonates with you. There's so many different podcasts and audible books or what have you. There's so much information out there. It's just that one step in the right direction. Because again, if you're like me, all or nothing, I'm like, I either like need to do it all or like not making any progress. And so for me, I have to take one baby step in the right direction. And maybe that's, just reaching out for some help and asking my network for, hey, do you know of anyone who's in X field? I would love to have an informational interview with them. I'd love to have some connections. It's so scary sometimes to post that on LinkedIn. But again, flip it around. If someone was posting on LinkedIn saying, hey, do you know anyone who's been in customer service roles, who've worked for startup companies? And you'd be like, yeah, I know some people. And then you'd be like, tag Nichole Harrop. She's great to talk with. You wouldn't even think twice about that. But why are we so worried about putting an ask like we're an inconvenience or that it's weak to do that? Men do this all the time. Like they have no shame in saying, hey, like I need this. Who can help me with it? So getting rid of a little bit of that like self-worth like concern and just throw it on there like you would want anyone else to ask for help.
I love it. I love it. I love the idea of flipping it around and recognizing if someone else were asking me, of course I'd be willing to help. So why wouldn't someone be willing to help me? I love that. It's such an important perspective. Okay, so one final question really quickly.
Yes.
A lot of our women are reentering after a long career break, or some of them are starting careers as adults, in their 30s, in their 40s, when they haven't really had careers before. And that can really bring so many of our women struggle with confidence. Like I didn't believe I could do it. If you had just a couple of tips to help women feel confident enough to take some of these positive steps, these proactive steps, what would you give them?
Yes, I would tell you again, networking proactively is going to be the biggest thing. Ask people, hey, where are people hiring for women who have been maybe stay-at-home moms for the last 10, 15 years? There is so much value. And I will tell you, when I was younger and didn't have kids and someone was coming back into the workforce, I did have a different perspective because I didn't understand it better. And I think if some more people had reached out to me proactively and said, hey, this is what I'm excited about, I would know that they're actually like really serious. Yes. Okay. They've thought about this. They've planned out that, kids pick up and drop off or what have you. And now we have a much more flexible workplace, I believe, unless you're working like customer service, like the people I lead do have to be there for a certain amount of time. But yeah, proactively network, find the companies who want to hire the women who have been in that situation, because you again, you have so much to bring to the table. So much can be taught. I am an example of that. I didn't go to college. Everything I learned was on the job. And I go to these career fairs where they're saying stuff that I'm like, oh, that is so cringy. Like, why are you doing this? And there are these like really high executives who I'm working with at these tables, and they're like, hey, what do you think about this? Like, some people just still don't know a lot of that information. And I feel very grateful I've had such great mentors. So finding a mentor, someone who's where you've been and where you want to be, right? We don't want advice from the people who are in positions we don't even care about. So find a mentor who's been in that situation, who's been the mom, who's been staying at home and who's come back into the workforce. What advice could they share with you? And how can you continue with that networking and, show people that you're ready to join the workforce and that you like once people get to know you as a person, then they can envision you working with you, and then they're going to want to hire you. So that networking in advance is so key.
Okay, so that was our last question. I know we're right at the end of our time, but I did see one more question come in.
As long as it
Tips.
doesn't cut us off.
Yeah, no, I think we'll be okay. So,
Okay.
so this is tips for staying out of the scarcity mindset. And she said, I find myself feeling hopeless as far as getting to a career because I feel so far behind. I've been home with my kids since college for 18 years. I feel clueless about putting together a resume. And although I feel capable, I worry that I won't be able to prove it. So you talked about that scarcity mindset before.
Mhm.
Are there things that you can help us know how we can escape from that?
Yes, such a great question. Again, appreciate these vulnerable questions. So, what I do anytime something is hard that I don't want to do, like I built my own website, I created my podcast, like those were such hard things that, like, you think, oh, sure, easy. And then you go to create it and you're like, what the hell am I getting myself into? So, what you can do is set a timer for 30 minutes. 10 minutes, whatever that is. If you're like, I'm not even sure I can even look at the page of what I'm supposed, like a resume. Okay, set a timer for 10 minutes. And then you're going to go start looking on Pinterest. Okay, let's find a template that we like. And then you can make a copy of it in Canva, or you can buy the template, whatever works for you. And then once your 10 minutes is up, you're like, okay, if I'm done, I'm done. And if I am thinking, oh, I actually am feeling pretty good, I'm going to add another 5 minutes or 10 minutes, or maybe I don't even need to reset the timer. I'm feeling good. I'm in a better flow. I'm feeling confident. I can do this. Allow yourself to get to a stopping point. It doesn't have to be all done right now. Um, when you're feeling like, again, you haven't been in the workplace for so long, how can you brush up on skills? Could someone who works in a position that you want to be in, what about setting up a Zoom session and being like, hey, can I just like watch you work for like an hour? Can we set it up like during kids' nap time or whatever it is that you're flexible for? I'd love to, if you feel like that's, not comfortable for you, I'd love to just kind of see what you do, especially people who work on computers all day. That wouldn't really work if you're like at a physical place, like Amazon fulfillment. But yeah, if it's something that people could do, or like, hey, let's meet up for coffee and can you walk me through like your thought process on how you work through a hard situation, preparing you for those situations as well. There's tons of courses online. You can do like the different LinkedIn learnings. You can do all sorts of different things. And what I would suggest to highlight on your resume, I call it like an about me section. And I put that as a way for them to connect with me. Again, I told you how hard it is to connect with people on resumes. I do the about me and I talk about it in a way of like things I've been working on. Hey, I'm ready right now for this next opportunity. And things I've been working on to prepare for it are X, Y, and Z. I've been volunteering at events. I've been joining tech moms, and these are the different things that I've been really enjoying. That type of thing. Highlight those things on your resume. Guess what? Your resume doesn't have to be a certain way. Everyone is in this like, where do we get this mindset that your resume has to look like all these things? You can have it be whatever you want. And all you need to do is look at the job description and have some similar wording to help it pass those applicant tracking systems. So hopefully that heads you in the right direction. I know that's a lot of information to take on, but try different things on and again, see what works for you, what you feel good about.
Thank you so much. That was great because even though you said a lot of different things, they had one thing in common. They were all active steps. And I think action is one of the best enemies of the scarcity mindset, because when we do something that gives us more confidence, we recognize, oh, I could do that. Maybe I can do the next thing. And so I think having those action steps and just taking that one first step, 10 minutes is all we need to give ourselves a little more confidence and move forward. Thank you so much, Nichole. This has been fantastic. We're really grateful. Appreciate your time with us tonight. And you all have her contact info. You can reach out to her and we can also connect you with her. And next week, we will be meeting. I do not know exactly what we're talking about next. I've got a couple of things in the hopper, and I haven't finalized which one we're going to be doing next week, but you will get some notification about it. Thanks so much for joining us, everybody, and hope you have a fantastic evening. We'll catch you later. Thanks,
Bye,
Nichole.
everyone.
Bye-bye.